I think there's only one way to go into it.
That's with a fucking broom handle if you're fucking
Wait, what are you
coochie.
doing?
Okay.
What are you doing?
Broom handle up your coochie. This is gonna be a good episode.
Do you know that the German word for kitchen is coochie, and or cooch, and like when you walk into my friend's got an Oma who lives right down the road, and she's got this big decorative thing when you walk into her kitchen that says Oma's coochie, like right there in the living room there when you walk in. It's great.
I don't know how to feel about that.
I love it.
It's great.
That's great.
Oh my!
I think that's all we need.
It's a scarier movie than Nekromantik.
So this movie's definitely got to be like a top tier movie as far as movies that you don't want to eat while watching.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this Salo.
Oh, Salo, yeah.
Salo's pretty rough.
There's some eating in Salo.
Yeah, no chocolate pudding for you on that one.
You didn't eat during this movie? You weren't?
No, it made me not want to eat for the rest of my life.
You don't want rabbit or anything?
You know what's funny about that rabbit scene too is like, it wasn't done for the movie.
Right.
Like he just knew of this person who's gonna like film the skinning of a rabbit and filmed it and got it in the movie.
Yeah.
And like it just worked to splice in.
Which was the hardest part of the movie for me to watch, actually, was the rabbit stuff.
Yeah, when it's the most realistic thing out of everything that happens. And
What's-
I think that adds to that layer of realism. They're just like this mecca of musicians and artists coming out of Berlin. And it seems like, I might be reaching, but it seems like Jorg, the director, is like diving into the scene more than he is like kind of like looking back at cinema or looking back at movies he may have seen in the past.
Yeah.
And I can see the reflection of that in that he's making a movie about death and sex, and then combining the two, which I think is the first time that's ever happened. But what he's really influenced by, I think, is more of the music scene and more of like what's going on in Berlin and like dealing with like the cops. I don't know if this is exactly like an answer to like censorship and like the video nasties and things happening in the UK, but they almost couldn't like show this movie because of its antagonistic approach to being a, fuck the cops movie.
Yeah.
Like,
and he claims
fuck
that he
censorship.
wanted that.
He's provoking. He's like poking the bear. He's trying to get them pissed off.
Because he obviously was well aware of the video nasties.
Yeah.
And there was something to that, probably.
Yes.
But it was almost like a fight against, or continue pushing that boundary.
Yeah,
he
right?
wanted
what's
to push
the limit and where can we push it? But also making a great film at the same time. Like, he never got far away for being an antagonizing prick, like towards the cops.
Yeah.
He was never like betraying his own story and wanted to make a
yeah.
real thing.
It seems really sincere.
It's
you know?
so sincere.
In a really,
It is.
gross way.
Yeah, I feel like this, like you said, I think it's a reflection of the time, for sure. And I think in his mind, he was probably like, oh, you think those movies are nasty? Wait till you watch this movie. Like, I'm going to really gross you out.
Well, yeah.
And it does.
The
It does.
the music angle is really interesting. Like, I didn't think about that. But I, coming from that time period, me remembering that time period very well where in the mid to late 80s, when the kind of splatter punk genre of films was really coming alive, and in kind of a mainstream way, you kind of saw that with Clive Barker, but there was an underground level to that where it was all about pushing the gore, and of course censorship was really hard on that during that time, so that kind of elevated that kind of outlaw status to some of those films. So
This one specifically,
yeah.
the cops were like getting the prints before they even were like showing.
So that's what I was going to ask. So how did you find this movie? Because this has to be something that you would have to find either in a video store or like in a garage somewhere, because it's not like it had like a wide release.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
that was the one thing that I was getting at was the way we would get any of these films. The first time I saw The Beyond was about what I'm about to say, which is that people would put personal ads in Fangoria or some other like horror magazines, and you would send them a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you would receive in the mail like 7 weeks later a pile of like Xeroxed paper stapled together with a list of movies. And then you would then send this guy or whoever $30 or something, and then like another 7 weeks later you would get like a VHS tape with crayon that says The Beyond on it or whatever, you know. And you felt like, boy, I'm really like breaking the rules right now. I have no idea what this movie's about. I've heard it's crazy, but here I go. And so there was a whole tape trading element back then. And Nekromantik was a big part of that. And Nekromantik was like one of the holy grails of that kind of era.
I feel like I would see Nekromantik next to like Faces of Death in certain video stores. You know what I mean? It's just like almost like a band category.
Yeah, almost like by the XXX.
Yeah. Literally right next to each other.
If you even saw Nekromantik, you're much more likely to see Faces of Death than you were to see Nekromantik.
Sure.
But one thing that maybe some kids don't realize is that to see The Beyond, even something like The Beyond or even something like Suspiria back in the day was very difficult to do. And especially foreign films like this. And you would have to kind of go through some weird channels in order to get your weird
might not
copy.
Get subtitled. Might just
the big copy of Beyond I got, which was the only uncut copy I could find, and I still have it somewhere. It's has Japanese subtitles on it, and I got it.
So you don't know Italian or Japanese, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah. But anyways, Nekromantik was a big get, and it was something that you could almost not even see an image of. You could just read a little blurb about it.
And I was reading the premiere of this film was actually in the UK. They had shown like cast and crew and stuff in Germany, and a couple prints had gotten confiscated by the cops when word got out about it. But it had such a reputation by the time it went over the water to the UK that they had this there's this infamous screening, and you can watch people talking about it on special features and stuff. But it's really fascinating. I won't go into it because it's a great story that is really long. But the night it premiered, it was one of those button-umathon type premieres and it was on the part of town that was really kind of sketchy. And everyone was in this hot basement theater in order to see this movie, and they had been there for 20 hours. So these are the absolute most devoted people to see this movie and that wanted to see it. And it had a reputation before it had ever been seen by anybody in the UK anyway. And the director was at this event, and he's watching the movies, and he's just thinking the cops are going to show up at any minute and confiscate it because that's what he was used to. And they felt like it was going to happen too, like the programmers. And I'm pretty sure it was a big event. It wasn't just they were tacked on. They knew what they had.
Right.
They knew it was going to garner excitement. Everybody had been talking about it in the magazines and stuff, and then they finally got him to come out with it. And I think Clive Barker was there.
Wow.
The slate was full of badass filmmakers and their films. And the one movie everyone was talking about was Nekromantik. And then for it to have an explosion like that, and on a level in the indie scene, not even in its home country, it seems like it was almost ignored in its home country because of the censorship. And then the UK, which was heavily censored at that time, being a micro explosion and then controlled explosion because of the video nasties and everything, it then went again into obscurity and became a part of this VHS trading. And so it's really fascinating that it has these little blips and moments of like happiness where it's seen, and then it disappears because as a society's we can't fucking handle this movie.
I just, even though like I was around doing those tape tradings and stuff back then, I can't imagine the energy and the feeling of underground, even though the screening might have been known, to have a print and maybe you'll get arrested, maybe you won't. Are they going to show it? You can't just like go on the internet and like find some rare film. Like this is something you have to travel to see, something you have to like
put in the effort.
Get really lucky to get a ticket to see.
And the print was 8mm that they had like put together, so it was like a copy of a copy of a copy. When they made 8mm back then, and so it was so dark. Like for instance, the first scenes in the movie are black essentially. So they thought like people in the theater can hear them talking, but they thought the movie was like broken, like it wasn't gonna work. And so like you get the warning with the white text on black. You can see that great warning at the beginning of the movie where it's like no minors, and then you get the quote from some random person that probably doesn't exist. And then and then you get this scene of a woman pissing, and then a car accident.
It's a lot of pissing in the first place.
Very German.
You know what you're getting into, but these guys did it in the original screening because that would have been black as night.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually they get to lit stuff.
And we discussed it before that Super 8 actually, for the most part, for what you're dealing with a camera like that, it looks pretty decent.
Oh, the movie looks great for 8mm.
It's almost like it's a time that's obviously lost, and I'm personally happy that it's easier for all of us to see films, rare films, or but boy, you almost wish you could get in a time machine and go back and have that feeling of like discovering something like that,
for the first
and what
time.
it would take to see something like that.
For me, a big thing of why I love this movie is the choice of music. And there's his friend, the pianist composer, wrote music for the movie.
I feel like he did not know what movie he was scoring.
Well, I think he did. I beg to differ. I think they were on such a wavelength with this movie that they knew what they were making. They were making a romance, and that's why it's called Nekromantik. It's like 50% necrophilia or necromancy. Necrophilia, really, but play on words with necromancy, raising the dead, but there's no raising the dead. But romantic is the second part of the word, and it is a true romance novel, like come to life, with the invention and with the addition of corpse fucking. It's like it's really you take away the corpse, it's a Fabio movie. It's just like a melodrama, like anything else. And so the music matches romantic on such a level that when it hits and it repeats and this theme, it's just it's my favorite part about. I have it on Blu-ray. It's my favorite part about putting that Blu-ray in. It's like it kicks the fucking music in. It's repetitive. I'm like, oh, I love this fucking like.
There's three composers listed, and the one composer that I'm really interested in is the one named John Boy Walton.
John Boy Walton,
who is obviously taken from the Waltons.
Sure,
John Boy, but I wonder whether that's the director or whether that's a
I know.
Joke
like the lead actor is the other one. He plays like the synth stuff.
Okay,
and then their composer, who's like seen at least maybe in the behind the scenes stuff, but he's helping on set. It's a real grassroots get your hands dirty. Everybody in the movie is doing 5 jobs, and they're all figuring it out, in real time. And I think they also were editing it as they were going, so they were kind of trying out different scenes and recompiling and reshooting and doing all sorts of stuff to make it work. But what they ended up with is this incredible, really not hard to follow narrative.
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, very straightforward. Even though it's bizarre,
right?
You can see the Dahmer-like, stepstones of like, let's watch him like progress and get worse and worse into this obsession of his that starts with small collection of body parts and then a corpse, and then what does that do to his relationships? And then watching him like navigate those relationships and then become self-destructive and then eventually complete the circle.
Yeah, Nekromantik is not one of those films where it's like all about the grossness of just you're gonna see someone fuck a corpse in this movie.
Right.
Like it's
corpse fucking art.
It's corpse fucking art, you know, like art in bold letters, like because it is a well-made corpse fucking movie. It is a
the corpse looks great. The corpse
does look very convincing,
especially for the time.
For their budget, their budget was zero.
Budget was zero.
That pig eye that they had that pig eye for like 3 fucking weeks of filming, and they said it just tasted like chemicals, and they were all putting it in their mouth, you know, spitting it out and putting it out, and fucking like putting more like KY on it, and it was just, it's so barf gag worthy every time they fucking put that fucking eye in their mouth. It's so gross.
It's so nasty.
And it's real. It's a real
so
pig
nasty.
eye.
You know what? So I really like that they make the main character a part of like a cleanup crew, because I always think no one's really made a movie about those guys and what they do. I think
there's
might
that
have,
Sunshine movie, Sunshine Cleaning.
But that's more
like a lighthearted, like
it's like
let's
clean
talk
bed
about
sheets
death
shit.
in a lighthearted way.
But this was like, no, this is like someone got ran over and we're gonna clean up the carcass, you know. And did you notice they're not even wearing gloves? They're just picking it up and throwing it. I was like, that's so
it's
fucking
so blue
gnarly.
Collar, like,
yeah.
to the earth.
But that
like,
just goes to show
I don't
you
need protection.
That goes to show you like that's more
Old
of the
school.
It's punk rock. It's like we're gonna show you.
And we're gonna hire these kids straight that are still in school.
Yeah, they're young.
To fucking do this job. We're gonna pay them nothing. We're gonna treat them like shit. They see them treated like shit.
you feel sorry for them. See, that's another
thing
thing
all
I was
are
gonna
in the
say.
truck and they're depressed about their shitty job, and they all have to fucking like see death, and they have to think about that. And then you see this kid and he's totally demented, and the funniest thing is that he's demented with his girlfriend. His like girlfriend is, you know, essentially
she's like a cool hipster almost. Like she's cool. Like
and she's like really into blood. Like she's like a chemo file or something.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, when you first see her in the bathtub, I wasn't quite sure if the water was just so fucking gross and dirty, or if it was supposed to. And I was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on.
Both of them
here.
are, because he ends up taking a bath with that dead cat.
Yeah, with the
dripping on him.
I focus on her a lot because I feel like she's like kind of like a hip gal, you know, compared to him. So it's like she's wearing the clothes that reflect that time.
Yeah,
very cool, underground.
Kind of felt like maybe she was the one who got him into like convinced him to start collecting body parts.
That's what I was assuming too.
But they don't start. They start after he's already like into collecting.
I mean, Chris, you know about freaky girls. I mean, that's usually the girl is the ones that brings it in, right?
Yeah. There's grave sex in this movie.
Oh. I was gonna bring it up.
Rape and murder.
I was gonna bring it up. Rape, murder.
No, I would
just 2 murders in the grave.
I would agree with that. That it's usually the woman who brings in the interesting ideas.
You heard it here first.
You know, and pushing the envelope, and I mean,
stupid.
I'm all for it, you know.
I'm all for it too.
Yeah,
it's fucking sick.
Bunch of fucking perverts. I'm gonna pray after this real hard.
John Waters said this movie's groundbreakingly gruesome, and it's the first erotic film for necrophiles. Which I believe I'm a necrophile at this point now.
Dude, if John Waters puts that stamp on your movie, you did a good job.
Yeah.
When you first get into one of the scenes where you're at the apartment with him and his girlfriend, and I forget what he's doing at the time, or what she's doing, but in the background you hear the TV going, and it's in German, so in the subtitles, you know, I could read what was being said on the TV, and it was something about the desensitization of humanity through violent culture and art, and how far things could go, and also talking about I guess like therapy, where you kind of face whatever it is that you're grossed out or horrified by, and it seems like that's kind of sets up kind of a theme for what's going on in their apartment.
Yeah, it's not a hard movie to follow.
No.
Like they kind of lay it all out for you.
Yeah.
It's just shocking because every scene they one up the scene before of just like thrills and chills and deviancy.
Yeah.
But okay, so like you got into the TV and a little bit of the design and the bloodbath and everything, but for a second, can we talk about the bed that they live in? So like before anything creepy goes on, they show us this world's scariest bed, and it's just part of the set design where this guy.
I wonder if it was just like his apartment.
Well, it was the camera guy's apartment. Where the camera guy lived.
Okay, yeah.
And the camera guy's probably the least creepy out of all of them, or into creepy shit. And he's just like, he just knew what was required of the film and was like, I'll donate my apartment for 6 months while they filmed. And then he slept in that bed, I guess. But yeah, that was his room. And they dressed up, obviously. I don't think he lived in that bed before. But my favorite touch of realism is at the beginning of the movie, you see him like plop down on it, and behind his head, in between the wall and the fence, pieces of fence that make a headboard and a footboard, is like a pile of empties, like beer cans that he had just like fucking drank and just sloshed behind it. And I'm like, if that isn't like the back of your truck, like in high school, when you're drinking and driving, every fucking person I've ever met. And it's just like, where does the beers go? They go right there. And like, I almost like think like while they're making this film, they're set dressing, while they're drinking and throwing it in there. They're having a blast making this fucking movie. There's no continuity. There's just fucking figuring it out.
It's very free.
And going out there. It's the most punk rock movie there has ever been made. It's so awesome, but it doesn't betray itself. It follows its own rules, and it's just such a solid piece of art that fucking breaks all the fucking rules. And like, not its own rules, but it breaks rules of society, where it's just like, it's the biggest like, fuck you, we're gonna fucking make this fucking thing. And then he just like keeps going, and he makes a fucking sequel to it that doubles down. And like his other movies, it's just like crazy awesome.
He's a really talented filmmaker.
So talented.
One thing I noticed is that they did so well is that they keep the corpse hanging on the wall there for a while, and then take it down and put it back up. But the wall has a wetness to it. Mm-hmm. When the corpse isn't there, that's like a silhouette of the body.
Yeah, like it's a photo or like a art that's been on the wall for a decade, and there's a dust like shape of the painting.
Just those little touches like that they thought of. They really did a great job.
No, they did. But let's talk about the best part of the movie real quick. Let's go in right into it. The dream sequence.
This is not what I thought you were gonna say.
Oh well, no. There's a couple great sequences, but that one really, when she's tossing the head back and forth and like frolicking in the field, I was like busting up laughing so hard because that scene in particular was played for laughs. Like he wasn't being serious, but like he knew that was gonna be a comical thing and like disturbing.
And the nice application on the face,
that
looked really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if they revealed the budget on this movie, but it was low, right? Like super low.
They made that cat for $7. I mean, that pig eye was a pig eye for budget reasons. They didn't have budget to make a decent eyeball.
I read this. I don't know if it's true, but apparently the combined budget of the first and second film were $45,000 combined.
Okay.
For both films.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether that's the case, but that's
probably with like film stock and all that stuff, editing, post,
everything,
mixing. This movie also does a really good job at promoting safe sex. That's cool. That's cool stuff.
They
put
wear
a condom on the
correct
on the broom on the little broom handle thing, which I think is an interesting choice.
It's got lube on it.
Would make it a little easier, but I would have
And splinters slows down the splinters.
Yeah.
The film within the film, when he goes to the movies
and
he sees that horror film, it uses every cliche in the book, but it feels like a real horror film. So it almost makes you think like, oh, this guy could just like, you could take Jorg and then put him on the set of a Chainsaw movie, and he could make a Chainsaw movie.
Well, what's interesting you mentioned that is that the audio for that film that he's watching, all of those screams are from the original Chainsaw Massacre. And
Makes a lot of
then the
That's cool.
soundtrack to the second part of the film is from The Burning. So and it really sounded like he just took a tape recorder and played those movies and then used the audio for that film. And not only that, but both of those films were on the Video Nasties. So he may have done that on purpose as well, especially Chainsaw Massacre.
Sure.
But yeah, the trap door, like all the elements that are so cliche, but like effective, and you see it and you're like, oh shit, this is a tight movie.
And you know, and in that scene is another kind of like desensitization thing where the audience is kind of sitting there bored.
Right. It's a commentary on that whole thing.
Yeah, as they're watching it, you know.
It doesn't even affect them,
Yeah. But you know, that world that he's building there, this world that they live in where it's like he's got a shitty job, you know, there's nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like Cronenberg's Crash. They're all just hanging out like, when can we fucking crash another car? Because I can't, I'm fucking dead.
Yeah. It's like they want to feel, it's like he and his girlfriend for the first part of the movie, they want to feel something.
Yes.
Something more.
And to his detriment, too.
Yeah.
Like, she ends up taking the corpse and leaving it.
Yeah, she's like, I feel more with this dead body than I do with you. And,
but their menage a trois is so great, and it ends with a steak dinner.
Yes.
It's fucking great. Just like a Fabio scene.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if I should even bring this up, but I think it might be interesting to talk about. So, in film school, a good friend of mine, his final project was a movie that was a tribute to Nekromantik, and it's actually pretty good. I shot a lot of it, and he had the corpse. He had a guy. I'm not gonna spoil it, but essentially that's kind of what happens. This guy falls in love with this corpse, right? And this director also did some pretty gross stuff on purpose, you know, like eating live worms and stuff like that. We shot it, and it was gross.
Where's this movie at?
I'll dig it up. I'll dig it up for you guys.
What's wrong in eating your food? Lost your appetite? Here, let me help you out. Here comes the train. Come here, look. Shoot. No way? Alright. I'm gonna get it.
But I thought I'd bring it up because I was like, when am I ever going to bring this up again?
Right.
Like, you know
No,
what I mean?
that's cool.
And it was a tribute to the movie.
Well, it's good to know that Nekromantik is still
I was just
influencing
gonna say,
film studios
yeah.
and having a positive effect on, you
Absolutely.
know, the emerging storytellers.
Yeah.
I wanted to come up with a bit for this thing to figure out like how I could get half of my body into the couch and like give me like fake legs and a fake dick. Just like do the whole gag where I just like blow my load while stabbing myself at the end of the episode. Dude, that fucking load. And then it turns to blood. It's my favorite.
Let me tell you something.
And he sees it coming towards his face and goes, "Whoa." It just goes all over the wall.
Because you can see a special effects guy in the back just pumping it, going like,
Yeah. And the behind the scenes footage of all that is some of the best BTS ever. Because they're all laughing. They're all around it, like pumping all that blood through it. They're all fucking laughing.
Seems like that's such a blast.
I didn't even know they had
He's
BTS.
just like, you know, stabbing himself. He's like, and then he looks back at the camera. He's like, oh, you know, it's so fucking funny.
I didn't know there was BTS on this, man. I gotta check that out.
The BTS is gold.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, there's a doc called Corpse Fucking Art where he does like behind the scenes on like 3 or 4 of his movies, and they're so fucking good. Because it really just like brings it down to down a notch, like the whole like seriousness about you know, this movie is like, you know, pushing the envelope and all that stuff. It's really just they're a bunch of young guys like having a good time.
Yeah.
Guys and gals like having a good time and like trying to make art and also trying to like push the envelope and say something about what they thought was a desensitization towards sex and death, you know, and like literally let's combine the two things that most people love, and it's going to make them recoil.
Well, let's make the most taboo movie possible.
Yeah,
you know?
but taking the two elements that are so oversaturated, you know, in media, and still are. Look at Game of Thrones. Like, those are the two things, major elements in all these movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
But if you put them together, it's all of a sudden the most reviling thing you can think of.
I did find it interesting, though, that, you know, revisiting this film after all these years, that I wasn't as shocked anymore as I thought I was going to be. Which I think, in a way, you know, what they're saying in the movie, you know, has some truth to it, because I can remember, you know, when the rumors about this movie were going around in the late '80s, and just how shocking and how you'll never be the same after seeing it, and I agree that it does have shocking elements, but back then you would have really felt it.
Yeah.
But I definitely kind of got through it a lot easier. Like, I think, again, the rabbit scene was probably the one scene where I was like, I don't need to see that. You know?
Yeah, because it was the most real part of the whole thing. Even though he was going for realism the whole time, that just added that real layer that you know that's real. Like, you know, they can't fake that on that level like everything else. And so, like, having that, it wasn't like to compare, contrast the rest of the movie.
Sure.
It was really just to, like... help meld all his, you know, fake features that he had made, like, all together, you know, with realism.
And, you know, what we're talking about is that there's a scene of, like, kind of like an educational video or something of,
it almost looks like
it's
like
a rabbit breeder.
Yes.
Who is, you know, preparing
it's
a rabbit.
It's almost like a slaughterhouse
I love
thing.
how it's edited in there, too. Like, all these scenes are kind of, like, dreamlike. And
I love at the very end when he's getting his rocks off, and they show the footage of the rabbit again, but it's reversed. I thought that was a cool little touch, little editing trick, you know?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, love this
I feel like I was more grossed, and this is so weird, I feel like I was more grossed out with the chick in the bloody water more than anything. Isn't that weird?
Oh, I thought that was so hot.
Yeah, apparently
I was just like, ugh.
Apparently those the cat guts in his bath, they were, you know, they had no money, so that cat was its guts were filled with scrambled eggs and food coloring, and so he like rubs the.
It looks like
guts.
jelly.
Now
like
that was
grape
gross.
jelly.
If she had, you know, when she's in the bathtub, you know, it's like she's more just kind of like almost dancing in the bathtub. She's not really doing anything.
Yeah.
So, you know, I could get into that, but like, but yeah, when he's like scrubbing himself with guts,
Dude.
then it's like that was my kryptonite.
It's easier to watch than you think. At the same time, I would definitely put it up there as like movies not to eat food while, you know, like just don't do it.
Yeah, if
Don't
you
do
watch
it.
this for Valentine's, like
You're gonna get in trouble.
I think for the vast majority of people, they should probably have dinner first, let it digest. and
Maybe
then
watch like
eat
How to
this
Lose a
food.
Guy in 10 Days first while you're eating a nice dinner, and then you pop on that. You go, honey, I got here. Save some
eat
for
the
dessert.
solid chocolates, not the chocolates with like a gusher, like
explosion.
inside.
Yeah.
Those might
man.
not taste the
If
same.
you watch this for Valentine's, you rule. I mean, you have a great relationship. Like, you probably will go the distance. Like,
you'll make
I
it
would have a
unlike
lot
the
of-
couple in the film. You'll go the
Dude,
Well, hold
yeah,
on.
Absolutely.
Or do they make it? Because at the very end, you know, when that shovel goes in the dirt and you see those high heels, you know, my brain's like, that's his girlfriend.
No, well, if you've seen the sequel, it's a whole new woman. But yeah,
Wow. Spoiler alert.
and that's
Man, that's a bummer
frame
because
one.
I wrote my notes. It's such a romantic thing. Like,
yeah, but that's how it ends. Like that's all you know. And that's a
I
great
guess
ending.
they make it seem like it's
Yeah, exactly.
Because she's like, the way she dressed was kind of cool.
Yeah, because she's
so-
like into it. You know, she lost interest in fucking the living.
Yeah, but now
He's
man.
dead. She's like, oh yeah.
And in reversed, I thought it was romantic of him having such a tragic ending where he's like, if she's not gonna come back for me, I'm gonna kill myself.
Yeah.
So she'll dig
Yeah.
me up and love me
Yeah.
again.
Dude, it doesn't matter whether it's Valentine's Day or whatever. The sad thing about romance and love is nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
Except death.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And that's
Except
pretty
corpse-
much it.
corpse
You know,
fucking
you want
art.
a partner you can keep forever, dig them up. That's the only way they're gonna stick around.
We
we got to talking about, you know, other Valentine's Day films or horror films or exploitation films would be great for Valentine's Day, other than like My Bloody Valentine or Valentine, which are the obvious
Which
ones.
rules, obviously.
Yeah. There's an article on thegarthmanor.com, you know, check it out, with a list of a couple of films that we thought of. But yeah, there are some films that I don't hear of a lot that I personally think would go really well. And The Prowler's one of them, yeah, because The Prowler has that sort of that romantic dance with the streamers, and there's even maybe paper hearts there.
There is.
Everything's
The opening
Valentine's
is
Day
like very
yeah.
like 50s,
Yeah.
like it's just
Yeah. But there are several films that actually take place on Valentine's Day or have a Valentine's Day theme that don't get a lot of chatter online, you know?
Sure.
Like, you know, Hospital Massacre is one. It's a hospital slasher film that actually takes place on Valentine's Day. It's this scrubs-wearing slasher who's chasing around Barbie Benton on a floor of a hospital that she can't get. Yeah, Tales from the Crypt, the anthology, the old Amicus anthology, the segment with Peter Cushing. That's a Valentine's Day episode. It's called Poetic Justice. And yeah, there are several really neat alternatives, I like to say, to My Bloody Valentine, even though I'm a huge My Bloody Valentine fan.
Of course. But those are good deep dives where you wouldn't assume those have a relation to Valentine's Day.
It's not in their marketing as much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But
and maybe because the fact that My Bloody Valentine was already out, so they're like, okay, well, we can't, you know, call it Killer Valentine. We can't call it, you know, whatever.
It could have been another time of the year release where that's just not important to them.
Yeah.
It's just an element of the film.
But I think that says something about Valentine's Day. I think there's still room to
Oh
grow
God, yeah.
for Valentine's horror.
Absolutely.
I really do,
I would say, and I would say this too. As much as there's so many Christmas horror movies, to me, there's still not enough. Because the thing is,
if you make a good one, you make
if you
a
make
good
a good
one,
one,
right?
because I think people just put Christmas lights in the background and they go, oh, it's a Christmas horror movie. It's like, well, no, like let's really get into it, like what the fucking legend of Christmas is, what other countries think Christmas is. You know, just there's something there that you can still tap into and make it freaky.
Sure, yeah. No, there's a lot that can be done there. And,
Yeah, I mean, especially Valentine's Day. I mean,
It's about love.
it's about love.
And you know, a lot of things can go wrong with love.
Especially twisted, dark love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Let's talk about this movie real quick.
Somebody could choke to death on one of those chalky candies.
Well, that's my review for the movie Valentine.
Water. And they're just eating those chalky candies. Oh, I
Like
can't
Necco
stop
wafers?
eating them. Yeah,
Yeah.
Necco wafers. Water.
I'm sorry. You're talking about the candy hearts, like the. Oh yeah.
It's the same as Necco wafers.
Fuck it's same gross
Fucking
factory.
awful.
Yeah.
Dude, who makes this shit? And how did that become the standard?
It started in the
'Cause it's
Civil
dirt
War.
cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's penny candies left over from
disgusting.
1900. Yeah.
I remember my old history teacher, one time we did like a good job or something like that. She all just gave us some Necro wafers, and I tried one for the first time. And I wanted to die.
You said Necro wafers.
You did. What a slip,
There's your Valentine's
man.
Day
That's
movie.
actually.
There's your Valentine's movie
Let's
right there.
let's
All right, hold on.
let's
Let me-
trademark
hold
that
on.
like right away. Go to
Opening. We open on a warehouse district night.
Necro
Fucking
wafers.
old ass Necco wafers are Necro wafers.
Yeah.
They might as well be Necro wafers. So gross. Let me tell you something. I'd rather take a bite out of a corpse than one of those things any day.